Hello, and once again, welcome to public speaking or speech class, if you prefer. I'm Dr. Cardillo, and we're going to get started on our second week, or really first week of class. Hopefully, you've all done the first week's assignment, and now we're into week 2, and your requirements are to read chapters 1, 2, and 3. Normally, the way I set it up is read chapter 1 and 2 in the beginning of the week, read chapter 3 at the end of the week. So first, let's talk about Chapter 1. Let's talk about why it is you're taking this course. I know most of you would rather not be taking this course and that it's a required course, and that's for good reason. Public speaking helps you to gain so many skills. It can advance professional goals, it makes you a much better student, and it makes you a more engaged citizen. Public speaking allows you to communicate your concerns to others and make your voice heard. This is really important. We're Americans. We want our voices to be heard. The skills you learn in public speaking will give you advantages all through your life. The research shows that employers rank public speaking and communications skills extremely high when deciding to hire someone or advance someone in their company. And these are the skills they rank the highest: communication, time management, teamwork, interpersonal, motivational, and strong work ethic. So communication skills are right at the top. Speech writing requires skills that some you already know and some you probably should get better at. As a student, you need to research, you write an outline, listening, huge. Listening is a huge part of public speaking. It's just as important to be a good audience as it is to be a good speaker. And then there's reasoning and critical analysis. Speech delivery techniques also apply to all the courses you take, as I said. It also makes you a more engaged citizen. It's really important to stand up for what you believe in. I'm a great example of that. I volunteer and work with a lot of causes. I speak the truth, and I believe in helping people anywhere I can. And you learn how to engage with the public when you can speak publicly. So let's get into just a little bit of history here. Your book goes into a little more detail. Public speaking began in Greece. It was called rhetoric or oratory, and this was the practice of public speaking. You've probably heard these words before. In Greece, rhetoric was practiced in the agora, which was the public square or the marketplace, but it was only practiced by free property holding males. So aren't we glad that's changed? In Rome, the Greek traditions continued, but they would meet in what was called a forum, and you've probably heard that word a lot, which is a public space where people gathered and talked about the issues of the day. Here are the different canons of rhetoric or speech, and this plays into the speeches we'll be given because we ask you to do certain speeches because they fall into the major categories of speeches you might give in your lifetime. So there's forensic oratory, which is legal speaking to persuade people. Well, one of your major speeches in this course is a persuasive speech. So you have to convince us of something, of anything you choose. Deliberative oratory is a speech given in legislature or politics or to inform people. And you're going to give an informational speech, which is probably the speech you will give most in your life. You're going to stand up in front of your boss or the people at your work and you're going to explain something to them. That's an information speech. Perhaps you're going to teach them how to do something. That's an informational speech. And then there's the epididactic, which is, I can never say properly, oratory, which is the speech for special ceremonies, and we call that an entertainment speech. We don't have to worry about that word. It's an entertainment speech. And that could be done, and we use the word entertainment very loosely. That doesn't mean you have to make me laugh. That means that you are not giving me a persuasive or an informational speech. You are doing it for another reason. You're giving the toast at a wedding. You're giving a eulogy at a funeral. You can be serious and funny in both of those things because it's a celebration, right? Celebration of life, a celebration of marriage. That's where we get the entertainment speech from. So Aristotle, he was this genius guy. Many of you have heard of him. He divided speech into 5 parts, and here they are. Invention, arrangement, style, memory, and delivery. Aristotle was a great speaker. He would stand in the agora or the forum or the square, whatever you'd like to call it, and he would speak and he would philosophize. He was a great philosopher. So let's start with these different canons of his rhetoric. Invention. Invention is the adaptation of the speech. So coming up with the idea of what you're going to speak about based on your audience. And you guys are lucky, your audience are other college students. You have an idea. They're like you, right? So they'd be interested in things that you would be interested in. So when you come up with your ideas for a speech, you would think, my audience are these people. Now, an online course is a little more difficult because you never see these people, but you could take my word for it. They're just like you. Arrangement, that's how we put the speech together. And what we'll do is we'll create an outline, and you'll be given an outline. They're all in Blackboard, and you will fill out this outline. So it helps you put together your speech and arrange it in the proper way. Style, this is all you. This is how you use your language and you express yourself and you tell your story, because that's what we do. We tell stories. That's what's great about public speaking. If you're a good storyteller or you like stories, this is a great place for you, because the more you can envelop story into your speech, the more people will listen. Memory, and you don't take this exactly the way it sounds. This is practicing the speech until it can be artfully delivered, but you don't want to memorize. Because if you memorize a speech and then you get lost, well, the whole thing goes up in smoke. What you want to do is work on the speech enough so that you know what comes next, but you can talk about it off the top of your head. Then there is delivery. How you use your voice, how you use your hands, how you use your facial expressions. I happen to be an Italian American. I use my hands a lot when I talk. I also used to be a theater person, so I'm very animated with my facial expressions, sometimes too much so to where I have to take it down a notch. So it's good to look in the mirror when you're practicing your speech. I know it's a little embarrassing sometimes if somebody walks in, but it's a great idea to look at yourself or know what you're doing with your hands, or are you jittering? Are you moving from side to side while you're speaking? Those things they're all part of the delivery, and they're all part of telegraphing how comfortable you are with speaking. Now let's talk about 4 categories of human communication. Dyadic, which is between 2 people. That's just a conversation, you and me sitting at Starbucks having a talk. Okay. Then there's small group. This is a small number of people, 4 or 5 maybe, talking to one another, sort of like a meeting would be. Mass communication. This is what I teach regularly. This is communication between a speaker and a very large audience, usually using some kind of technology, radio, television, the internet. So it's a mass communication to the mass audience. And then there's public speaking. That's where we are. That's a speech delivers a message on a specific purpose to a group of people. Okay? And the audience listens with limited interruption, hopefully. So all communication involves all these things. Look at this. We've got a source, a receiver, a message, a channel, shared meaning, context, goals, and outcomes. Sounds really complicated, but let's think about this. Okay, the source. The source is the person who creates the message. The source is you, right? Encoding is a process of organizing the message and choosing the words. So that's your plan, right? Your encoding is your plan. Then there's the receiver. That's your audience. That's the people who are watching you. In your case, it's going to be the 5 people sitting in front of you and the camera, which the camera is a whole nother set of people, isn't it? It's myself and your classmates, if they so desire. And they are decoding. They're interpreting the message you come up with. And they also give you feedback if you're lucky. The message itself, what you're talking about, right? Simple. So you're the source and you're giving the message. The channel. The channel is the medium through which the speaker sends the message. Are you standing in front of a microphone? Are you, in your case, you're filming it. There's your channel right there. So it's an electronic transmission of what you're doing. And the word noise is just anything that interferes with you. Are you in the middle of your speech and the baby starts crying in the other room, or hopefully your cell phone doesn't go off? Hope you have that muted. But that's noise. That's when something happens, or someone in your audience starts coughing or sneezing, or their phone goes off. You know, all those things can have an effect on the speech. So here's a little graphic to show it to you. So there's a speaker on the left-hand side, and they are the source, and they go through a channel with the message and hit the receiver. And then the receiver, through a channel, gives feedback back to the speaker. Pretty simple, right? Speech purpose should be clear, and it will be because we'll go through those steps. And constructive feedback is always, always helpful. I know people don't always like to hear negative, even positive things, but they're always, if you take it from the viewpoint that this is to help me, then it'll be great. So if you are nervous about speaking, here's a little something that I think will make you feel much better.
Thank you, Mayor and fellow Rachelanians. That electrician must be a Democrat. Thank you, Mayor and fellow Rachelanians. I'm proud to be here today. Attaboy, Luther! When I was asked to be guest speaker at this luncheon, I asked myself this: who are you, Luther Hayes, to be a guest speaker at this luncheon? I thought about my answer about being guest speaker for a long time. What is a guest speaker? Let me clarify this. I have been called brave. What is brave? Let me clarify this. Of course, we all know that it is short for bravery. That goes without even being said. But it is also a symbol of another thing. It is a symbol of doing one's duty no matter what is scaring him personally. Attaboy, Luther! Take your World War II. There were many heroes in World War II. What were your heroes? Who were your heroes? Let me clarify this. Thank you for having me.
So now chapter 2. Let's talk about how we prepare for a speech. Here's an overview about the speech making process. Now there's 10 steps. It looks really daunting, but it really isn't. So we analyze our audience. We talked about that a few seconds ago. We talk about who are these people that we're speaking to? Well, they are you. You're lucky in this instance. If you were going to speak at a conference, you would have to find out who the people were. But in this instance, you're speaking to an audience of your peers. So then you select a topic that really you find interesting and you think they might find interesting. And the most important thing is that you find it interesting. You have to care about what you're talking about. And then we figure out the speech purpose, which we'll talk about, and the thesis statement. They go together. And then you develop your main points, you gather your supporting materials, and then you separate the speech into its major parts. That's part of the main point part. You outline it, which we'll walk you through. You think about what presentation skills you might want to use, and you practice delivering the speech. So you pick a topic. Remember, it's something that interests you. It can be current events. It could be your passions, your hobbies. Do you like to fix cars? It's all based on what you care about. Now, your first speech is an introduction speech. So you're just going to tell us about you and the things you like and the things you do and dreams. And the reality is, it doesn't, in this case, in my case, doesn't even have to be the truth. If you want to make stuff up, as long as you put it into the right format, you can say anything you want because it's about you. It's your introduction. You're sharing your world with us. If you're a funny person, maybe you want to make it a little more fun. If you're someone who's getting in the medical field and you want to talk about how much you love dissecting frogs, ugh, you're welcome to talk about that too. So then we have to come up with the purpose of the speech. We have a general purpose and a specific purpose. Your general purposes are just to inform, to persuade, or mark a special occasion. That's to entertain in our case. And then your speech will have a specific purpose. So here are the three types of speeches there are. These are the three general ones, the ones that we'll do: to inform, to persuade, to entertain. So your first speech being it's an informational speech. It could be actually any one of these because it's just an introduction. I go real easy with you when we start. You're going to give us 5 minutes of you. Then you're going to come up with this specific purpose, okay? And this is how you do it. You start with an infinitive, and if you look down at the bottom there, oh, look at these asterisks. These asterisks here, these little stars to the left of the words, must mean they're important on a test. Anyway, if you look below, the infinitives, different types of infinitives are to show, to demonstrate, to convince, to prove, to inform, to explain. So here's an example of an infinitive special purpose, an infinitive in the special purpose. To explain to my audience what it's like to be a vegetarian. I happen to be a vegetarian, so that would be my choice. And then you always reference the audience. Asterisk there, that might be on a test. So, to persuade my audience to become vegetarians. Might be rough for some of you, but I'd give it my best shot. So that when you come up with your specific purpose, you're going to start with an infinitive: to explain, to inform, to tell, to show, and then you're going to say, my audience. So here we go. Here is the topic is vegetarians, the general purpose is to inform, and my specific purpose is to inform my audience why it is a good idea to be a vegetarian. So see, you just got the two things. You got your general purpose, you got your specific purpose. Got that right down. Now you must complete your thesis statement. The thesis statement clearly expresses the central idea of the speech. Look at that, another asterisk. So it might say on a test, what clearly expresses the central idea of a speech? And your answer would be, the thesis statement. Okay. It concisely identifies the topic and its main points. So let's look at my thesis statement. To explain to my audience that it is a good idea to be a vegetarian for health, happiness, and the well-being of animals. I like doing things in threes. Your main points can be from 2 to 4 main points, but I always like doing things in threes. So here you go. You develop your main points. Choose 2 or 3 main points around your speech. So they serve primary pieces of knowledge in informational speeches, and they're the key arguments in persuasive, which we'll get more into when we talk about those speeches. So let me go back one here. My main points are health, happiness, and the well-being of animals based on being a vegetarian. So those are how I would develop the main points of my speech. A speech has 3 parts. Asterisk, it has an introduction. You say hi. You say your thesis statement. You tell them what you're going to talk about. The body, which breaks down the main points. And then the conclusion, which repeats the thesis statement and says goodbye. And do you have any questions? So in the introduction, you always give your thesis statement. As a matter of fact, if you're really nervous on your first speech, I would be fine with you just giving me your thesis statement. Today I'm here to talk to you. Today I'm here to explain to you, my audience, why it is important to be a vegetarian based on health, happiness, and caring for animals. So let's get started. There's my transition. It's important to your health to be a vegetarian because blah, 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 blah. There's my first main point. Okay. The body, that's where my main points are. So you do your introduction with your thesis statement. You have a little transition that takes you to the body, which houses all of your main points. And then you have a conclusion. You reiterate the main points or your thesis statement, and you leave the audience with something to think about. It's always nice to say, so wouldn't it be a great idea to try being a vegetarian even for one day? And then you always conclude your speech with, thank you. Will there be any questions? I could take questions now. Does anyone have any questions? You always ask for questions at the end of a speech. I know most of you are hoping, I hope nobody asks me a question, but you always do that. It's the polite thing to do. So here it is broken down. So this, in your outline on the top left here, you'll see there's these, you put in your outline the specific purpose and the thesis statement. This will be all, it's formed out for you. You just have to fill in the blanks. Your introduction contains the thesis statement. You do a transition. You find a way to get to the body. The body works through all your main points. You transition back out to your conclusion, which contains the thesis statement. And then, oop, I don't have it written here, but you say thank you and you ask, are there any questions? Now, this is going to be a little more difficult for you guys, but I always require presentation aids, meaning like a PowerPoint with a speech. So what I'll ask of you is just to, if you can figure out how to do it while you're giving your speech in front of your family and friends, that would be wonderful. But I know that might be really, really difficult for you to do. So I'll just be asking you to upload the PowerPoint of the pictures that that go along with what you're talking about, just so that I see that you have some kind of a visual aid. So if you're talking about, I have 3 kids, their names are, and you can show pictures of each of them, and that would be great for your audience too. If you have a little laptop that you can sit up and just work through the PowerPoint, that would be wonderful. But if not, then you'll just have to email me that, or I'm sorry, upload that into the Blackboard. Now, Chapter 3. We're going to quickly go through this because I've been talking for a while and I'm quite a talker, but I know a lot of you will have anxiety about giving a speech, and so read Chapter 3 and it will help you a lot with the concerns of public speaking. And what is it that makes us anxious about public speaking? It's actually a disorder, public speaking anxiety. It's called PSA. Fear or anxiety associated with either actual or anticipated communication with an audience. So what do? You prepare and you practice. You modify your thoughts and attitudes, think positive thoughts, which hopefully you always do. Your college students, you have to think positive. You're doing great things for yourselves. You visualize your success. If you've never done something like this, it's a great time to start. If you want any more information about it, email me and I will send you some great information about visualization. See yourself doing it successfully. I can't tell you how many times I laid in bed and visualized something and it worked out exactly the way I thought it should, because I was so prepared and visualized it so clearly. Know how to activate your relaxation responses. In class, I actually do a relaxation where the students can either lay on the floor or sit at their desk. Can't do that with you guys, but I am at the end of this going to give you a link to a website where you can just lay back and learn to relax. If you've never done it before, as a drama teacher, I used to do this a lot. There are different ways to do it. You can just lay there and relax each single part of your body and then learn to relax your mind. Or you can follow this video that I'm sending you at the end of this video. You use movement to minimize anxiety, so you move a little bit here and there, you shift a little bit. If that helps you to get through your anxiousness, then use it. Learn from feedback. As we talked about earlier, feedback can be a little distressing, but learn when people say, you know what, you are always rubbing your hands together the whole time you're talking. Well, the next time, try to remember that and try to think about keeping your hands at your sides and not using them as much as I do. And then try to enjoy it. That's the most difficult part. Do your best to enjoy it. So use visualization techniques. We talked about that. Try to keep positive feelings on your speech day. See it already have happened and it's successful and everybody's thinking how wonderful you are. It really does work. So here it is. This is time for relaxation. I'm going to have this posted and you can choose to look at it if you want to, or if it's something that doesn't interest you, that's fine too. But if anyone needs it, it's there for you. I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any questions or comments, please email me and enjoy the rest of your week.